So unlike our previous examples, these are now equations. So keep that in mind. So we are going to solve for the variable, and we're going to use the process of completing the square. And I just found the typo in part A. There's an x missing. That should be minus 6x. My bad. Right. So remember your 2 steps that must be completed first. Step 1. Get the variables by themselves. In this case, we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. Step 2. Make sure the leading coefficient is a 1. Well, that's already done for us. If it weren't a 1, if it were 5, for instance, we'd have to divide all 3 terms by 5 first. But we're okay. So now we're going to be like our previous examples. We're going to take half of negative 6. What's half of negative 6? Negative 3. Square it. 9. We're going to add it to both sides. So the 9 on the left completes the square, but to balance out the equation, we add 9 to the right. How does x squared minus 6x plus 9 factor? Remember, variable followed by half that coefficient, quantity squared, equals 1 plus 9? 10. Notice, we are in the square root property now. So to get rid of this square, what do we do to both sides? Square root. So I get x minus 3 equals plus or minus. When you square root an equation, you include a plus or a minus. Mike, yeah. Let's suppose that on the test I forgot my plus or minus. Oh, that's totally fine. I won't forget to take off half the points. You're kidding, right? No, I'm not kidding. Don't forget your plus or minus, because if you do, you're forgetting half your answer. That's why you lose half the points. Oh, thank you, Mike, for punishing me appropriately. You're welcome. And then to finish it off, put the 3 in front of the plus or minus. 3 plus or minus square root of 10. B. Are we prepped for completing the square? Is the leading coefficient a 1? Are the variables by themselves? No. We got to get rid of that 5. What do we do with that 5? Subtract it. All right. Now we're ready. Take half of 3. What is half of 3? 3 halves squared. 9/4. We're going to add 9/4 to both sides. How does the left-hand side factor? Good. Squared equals, what is negative 5 plus 9/4? And don't you dare touch your calculator. Good. We have something squared equals something negative. What type of answer are we going to get? Imaginary complex. So when I take the square root of both sides, I get x plus 3 halves equals plus or minus how does the square root of negative 11 over 4 simplify? square root of 11 over 2I. The square root of the negative 1 becomes the I. The square root of 11 we can't do anything with, but the square root of 4 becomes 2. So we have x plus 3/2 equals plus or minus square root of 11 over 2I. So we're not done. How do we finish solving for x here? Subtract 3/2, so I'm going to write it up here. So x is equal to negative 3/2 plus or minus the square root of 11 over 2I. Notice the nice thing is the answer is complex, and our answer is automatically in standard form from completing the square. Yay. All right, C. Prep C for surgery. Boop, 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 boop. All right, how do we get this one ready? Yeah, divide by 4, subtract 3. They both have to be done. It does not matter what order you go in. I'm going to subtract 3 first. Then if I divide by 4, I get x squared plus 2x equals negative 3/4. No matter what order you went in, this is what you should end up with. We're not done, but that's getting it ready for completing the square. Questions? Half of 2 squared. What do I do with that one? Add it to both sides. How does the left-hand side factor? What is negative 3/4 plus 1? We got a perfect square trinomial. No, that's all right. Perfect square root property going on. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. We get x plus 1 equals square root of 1/4. What is the square root of 1/4? So we have x plus 1 equals plus or minus 1/2. Subtract 1 from both sides. Put it in front of the plus or minus. Now in the other problems, we did not have like terms. So 3 plus or minus radical 10, those aren't like terms. But in part C, we do have like terms. So let's break it up. What is negative 1 plus 1/2? It implies. What is negative 1 plus 1/2? Negative 1/2. That's one answer. What is negative 1 minus 1/2? I like mixed salads, not mixed fractions. They're delicious. What is negative 1 minus 1/2 as an improper fraction? Okay, for homework tonight, go back in time and find where you were a kid going to school, and that day that you missed how to add or subtract fractions, force yourself to go to school that day. You can check it if you want to. We had 2 answers for all of them. Plus gives you 1, minus gives you the. But in the A and B, we could not combine them anymore. 3 plus radical 10, they're not like terms. If that were 3 radical 10 plus radical 10, then we could say 4 radical 10. One more. What could possibly go wrong here, he says? Everything. All right. If the variable is by themselves, we're going to subtract 16. We're going to divide everything by 8. We are good to go. Half of 1/4 is 1/8. 1/8 squared is 1/8 times 1/8 is 1/64. The left-hand side factors as 1/8 squared equals -2 plus 1/64 without a calculator is plus 1/64. Because we added on the left, so we add on the right. Over. Good. Okay. Take the square root of both sides. I told you it was a good one. I ran out of room. How does the square root of -127 over 64 simplify? Square root of 127 over 8. I don't think 127 has any perfect squares. So we currently have x plus 1/8 equals this amazing thing. How do we solve for x? Subtract 1/8 and put it in front of the plus or minus. Look at that one. It had an amazing fraction. It had imaginary number. Cough. Oh gosh, that cough.